You're listening to Redesigning Reality with Dylan Charles and Jeff Anthony.
All right, welcome to Redesigning Reality. I'm Dylan Charles, here with Jeff Anthony, my good bud. What's happening, Jeff?
Not too much. Doing good, Dylan. How are you today?
Awesome. Outstanding. Yeah, kicking off this new podcast here. We plan on having a conversation, an ongoing conversation about awesome things. Jeff and I are good friends. He happens to be the author of an amazing book. It's called Cosmic Wizard, A Journey from Outer Rage to Inner Sage. That book kind of really describes what this podcast is about, I think. Journey from Outer Rage to Inner Sage, because Jeff and I both share a lot of similarities in our journeys of personal transformation and awakening, and that's really what we're going to be talking about. I think today we're just kind of brush through some introductory stuff, kind of get to know us and each other, and tell you all you fine people who we are and what our mission is here with this new podcast. Jeff, what do you got to say about that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same as you. I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits, and we've both been through some interesting things down our path of discovery and transformation, and that's absolutely what the book is about. And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast as well, is help people that are right there on the fringe or on the cusp of making a major transformation in their life, and just trying to help guide people through that and encourage people for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of our work. Like I said, Jeff wrote this book. He wrote it while he was living in Costa Rica. I myself also lived in Costa Rica for about 7 years. Jeff, you were there for about 10 years. He wrote a book while he was there. Me, I started a website. It's called wakingtimes.com, and at Waking Times is there's a lot of my personal stories of my own journeys with plant medicines, with overcoming things like depression, anxiety, the typical kind of stuff that people suffer from these days in our modern sort of like consumer, worn out, stressed out culture. But lots of cool stories there from myself and other authors, and lots of enlightening information. And couple that with Jeff's book, and we really wanted to use this forum here to reach out and connect with more people and see if we can find those people who can benefit from the stories that we're going to be sharing. Where should we start, man? We got we're going to record episode after episode, ongoing till the end of time, maybe. Who knows? But where do we start, man? This is number 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, to start with, like you said, I spent the last 10 years, a little over 10 years in Costa Rica, and I just recently moved back to the States. I'm living here in Eugene, Oregon, and loving it. It's a neat experience going from being an expat and kind of looking at your life and evaluating, your choices and the things you did before, and then coming back with, with a fresh slate and kind of doing the redux, because you're not starting completely over again. I've been married for 16 years to the same person, and we were together before we left Austin, and went to Costa Rica together, and we came back with an extra mouth to feed, and so I have 2 sons. One's in college, 18, and that was our big reason for moving back, was university. And then I have a little 9-year-old in the 4th grade. So it's quite the change. It's quite refreshing at the same time. And it's a time of renewal, which is another, topic I'm sure we're going to get into a lot in this show.
Yeah, Jeff and I, we seem to kind of be living parallel lives in a lot of ways. I have 3 kids. The oldest is she's almost 13. Little guy just turned 6. My wife and I have been married now for 20 years. Wrap your head around that, 20 years.
Right, that's awesome.
So, we've been blessed with love, health, good fortune, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that we're both realizing that it's time for us to really share in new ways. You know, he wrote a book, I got a website, but there's something special about face-to-face communication. You know, we have the power of the internet, the power of communicating with people from all around the world, and so I think we're both pretty excited about stepping into that. When you were talking about moving back to the States, it reminded me of, it just made me think of how often people here are like, wow, you came back to the United States. So what the hell did you do that for?
Yeah, that's my number one feedback loop when people are like, hey, so you're new to Eugene. Where'd you move here from? Costa Rica. What in the hell is wrong with you? I'm trying to get there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, and everyone's perspective is different. So, you know.
I was there. I was in Costa Rica for 7 years. Jeff and his family had a totally different experience than my family did. He was down on the Pacific coast, deep in the jungle, close to the beach. I was up in the mountains where the climate's a little bit milder. Totally different populations as well. I was around a lot of classic kind of old school Costa Rican farmers, agricultural community, just a lot of families and a lot of retiree age, retiree, expat age, people from Europe, from Canada, from the United States. And whereas you were kind of down there in the land of the wild.
Yeah, we were, it was, we lived on a little dirt road in a little village of about 400 people. And it was a great place to raise your kids. We had a really nice property right on the river and lots of wildlife and sloths and monkeys and very wild experience, Now I get to see the random squirrel or, we have wild turkeys running through our front yard here, which is also nice. But, I always enjoyed coming to visit you guys, though, because it was an extreme change. We'd go from our, 95 degrees and 90% humidity to, 90 degrees and kind of arid, breezy up where you were. So, and you guys were close to the city there, so we got to do a lot of fun stuff when we come visit you guys. Yeah, like go to the shopping mall. This is big excitement. Buy groceries in bulk. Yeah.
Sure. No, my town was where I was at. I was up on a little hilltop. Amazing place, man. This tiny little house packed with 5 people and like a view you could see all across the central valley of Costa Rica. You could see literally 3 volcanoes. The sun rising in the east every morning at 5 a.m. Great source of inspiration and energy for myself. But surrounded by coffee plantations, ranchers, like banana farms. We lived right in the middle of an orange and mango orchard. And every morning you'd see the toucans, and then every evening you'd see the oropendulas, these pitch black birds with these bright yellow tails that make really some of the most amazing bird sounds ever. Like they'd fly through the afternoon. But yeah, I mean, Costa Rica was something that you and I share, and that really is where a lot of things happen. A lot of big things happen for you and I in terms of just personal transformation. I know that when I showed up there, I was still kind of coming out of a lot of like self-destructive behaviors and just dealing with a lot of anger, dealing with a lot of just like stress and angst and a whole lot of like just sort of like toxic energy that I'd accumulated throughout my life. And my time there in Costa Rica, I was able to mitigate that, and that's really what the show is going to be about. But you too, man, and you're coming from an extra special place in that. The challenges that you've had to overcome weren't exactly just all in your mind or whatever. There's a major component going on with your body, man. Why don't you share that, because people can't really see the whole Jeff, man. Tell us about that. Right.
Well, just like you, I would say that I was trying. My move to Costa Rica was about trying to escape something, or maybe run away, or whatever you want to call it. I had served in the military, and I had been vaccinated for Desert Storm in the early 90s there, and it didn't go well, and I acquired a muscle wasting disease from the vaccines that I received, and so I was promptly discharged from the military and put on a disability and enrolled into the VA system and all these things that are very challenging things to do. And I was angry. I was 21 years old. I was just really getting going with my life and my career in the military, and things were going very well. And as far as like achieving things and making rank and pay and all that, but the physical things were going horribly wrong. And so now, over the course of, I guess, since 93, 96. So 24 years or so, I've been dealing with, a pretty severe muscle wasting disease, really comparable to like muscular dystrophy or something. So, I have to use a walker and a wheelchair and things like that. And I have, difficulty traveling and doing things. I need assistance with a lot of things, and it's a tough place to be mentally, physically, and spiritually, emotionally. So I had to overcome a lot of that and stop blaming myself and others for choices I made, decisions in my past and things that had happened. And so that's what my book was about. And I didn't go there with these intentions. It just kind of happened. Things had to get a whole lot worse before, I'm pretty knucklehead. So, things had to get a whole lot worse for me before I decided that I needed a major change, and was lucky enough to have an awesome wife that helped reveal to me that things weren't going well at all.
Yeah, and so like your aspiration now is to really use this forum, the podcast, as a way to sort of forward the message that's in your book. It's really my intention as well is to use this podcast as a way to forward the message that's sort of deeply embedded in my website. But that's, in 2 words, personal transformation, right?
Right.
In my case, my background, just to drop a little bit of it on you people, is I grew up in contemporary American society, went to public school, all that good stuff, and never really understood what the hell I was supposed to be doing with my life. Didn't have any training in spirituality or any understanding that there were like metaphysical capacities within us or spiritual powers that you could awaken and use to your advantage. And so I went through a phase right out of high school where I made some wrong decisions. And, thinking back, I wouldn't trade any of them because they made me who I am, but got involved in some drugs and, some stuff like that. And, was involved in alcohol and stuff from a pretty early age, dealing with the trauma of like divorced parents and all this kind of real stereotypical, commonplace things. And so it took me a good number of years to realize that I had worked my way all the way down into rock bottom, and I went through a period where I was suffering from severe depression, anxiety, and even though it seemed like I had everything, a guy could want, which is a really good job, a beautiful wife, my own house, a nice car, all this kind of stuff, I wasn't happy. In fact, I was like unhappy, like the opposite. It's not that I was neutral. I was very, very, very unsettled. And so I hit a phase probably when I was 26, 27, something where I started looking for help. Went to my doctors, went to psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, all this kind of stuff to try to find answers for the questions. They all seemed to want to push me in the same direction, which was, pharmaceutical pills. And I had a real big experience. We can get into that at some point, but I had a real big experience with a doctor trying to, what seemed to me like overdose me on psychotropic medications, and that really woke me up. And that's when I started a journey of self-discovery. Started getting into the main thing that really pulled me right out of it was Kung Fu, Tai Chi and Qigong, these internal and external martial arts. And then from there, I started reading and studying and doing a lot of positive things with my body, meditating, and really woke up to the fact that there's a whole nother unseen world that can be working to our advantage, or it can be working against us, and learned that if I was to awaken and pay attention and tune into myself, all kinds of great things would happen. And that's what sort of led me to the adventure in Costa Rica. So in that regard, Jeff and I are really kind of on parallel journeys here.
Yeah, absolutely. I same as you. I mean, I grew up in small town Texas, and received a stellar education in public school as well. And then, I grew up in a little bit of a challenging home life, you could say. My parents never got divorced or anything, but my dad was pretty strong-willed and abusive, would be mild way to put it. So, which was one of my reasons for joining the military, was to try to, again, escape something in a situation that wasn't, compatible to the type of life that I wanted to have for myself. And yeah, so I grew up in this kind of like a Christian upbringing as far as like religion and all those things go, and very structured home life, and then very structured in the military, and then kind of getting out of all that and losing my way because I'd lost everything. It felt like at the time I didn't know what was going to happen to me. They told me I was going to be having to live in a nursing home and within 10 years, and that I'd never walk again, and that I'd be wheelchair bound within 5 years. And I've shattered my pelvis in Costa Rica and done all kinds of awesome things to myself, and I'm still walking around. I mean, I have to use a walker, but 22 years later, I'm still pushing myself. And that's part of my message, is just to you don't have to accept the words of other people or prognosis or diagnosis. It's your life. You can push yourself, and you can move to Costa Rica with all these challenges and have an amazing life. And it was there that the same thing happened for me. It was there after years of kind of a forced psychological rehabilitation, the military like to call it, and trying to push lithium and Prozac and all these things on me, which I refused to take, that I began my spiritual journey too. And I abandoned all the things that I thought growing up were going to help me. And then I started getting into the esoteric realm of shamanism and meditation and journeying and, ayahuasca and doing ceremony. And that's when my life really changed. That's when things like kind of popped off for me. And I realized that, all the angels that people had talked about in the Bible and all that stuff in my life growing up that seemed like a fairy tale were really real and really there. And, that your life can unfold in miraculous ways if you decide to make the choice to tune in to that side. So,
yeah, and that's really what the show's going to be about over time. We may have some guests at some point. We may just talk amongst ourselves. And I think as we get more comfortable and more used to doing this, we'll be able to tell get into a lot of the really cool details of some of the stories we have to share. But really, this show is going to be about those practices, those things that you can do to really push forward big changes, big positive changes in your life. And so, that comes from, that has its genesis in, negative things or bad things, or coming from a poor position in life. I seem to think that like self-destructive behavior is very common. It was very common in my life. Jeff too, and that can mean everything from like poisoning yourself with drugs or food, to just allowing yourself to give in to things like anger and negative emotions and like negative patterns of thinking. And so along the way, man, there's been a lot of cool practices, a lot of really amazing things that have made just huge differences in myself for my life. And I don't even know where to start, man. I mean, there's so much. I guess we could just start telling stories today.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that's a big reason why I decided to do this with you is because, it's one thing to read somebody's story in a book. It's another thing to connect with them, like you were saying, and look in their eyes and hear their voice. And you can touch more people this way. And it feels good to share those experiences.
Right.
And it makes all of this make sense for me personally, and in my experience of consulting people and kind of helping them as a guide, I guess you would say, I give them my feedback loop. So I give them experiential information based on things that I've actually done. I'm not, spitting theory to them of article I read, or, I didn't go to college to, be a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. And in my experience, it tends to be more relatable for people, and it's very helpful for them. And it's helpful for me to get it gets things off my chest. It allows me to share my experiences, and it brings closure to a lot of things, like the anger and the frustration and all that. And yeah, so I chose my title very carefully because I believe we all have an inner sage. We can all get there. We just have to, calm the outer rage,
The monkey mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We in setting this show up, we picked the name Redesigning Reality. I think that kind of says what we've both done and what we'd like to share with other people. Like it's entirely possible for you to be happy. Like it's entirely possible for you to be at peace. It's entirely possible for you to be successful and fruitful and all those wonderful things. And the truth is that I wasn't always those things. And right now in my life, I have a tremendous amount of peace, tremendous amount of love and happiness. And people recognize this. People respond to it, And so really that's what this is about. It's about being able to take where you're at, develop the awareness to understand and honestly acknowledge where you're at, and then pick and choose and try the things that will help pull you up into a better, more positive spot. I mentioned just briefly about Kung Fu, the Chinese martial art Kung Fu. A lot of people contact me through my blog and ask me questions about, hey, how can I find Tai Chi or Kung Fu or Qigong school? That seems to be a transformative practice that might help me out. And it was definitely something that made a huge difference in my life. So I think we're going to look at those practices, a lot of which, a lot of things Jeff ended up talking about in his book. My case, I kind of went through this phase of depression, anxiety, all this kind of, ADD, all this kind of garbage, and found Kung Fu, was able to begin to clean up my body and focus my mind. Then I found a couple of really, really esoteric practices related to Qigong that generated like major transformations within myself. And then that went from there on to having the courage to start living the life that I wanted to live, which was doing things like moving out of the town I was from, and then ultimately making the decision to go live in a tropical environment, which had always been a dream of mine. And along the way, I was called by plant medicine's first ayahuasca that just sort of popped up and introduced itself to me and drew me into that whole sphere. And so in the last 6-7 years, I've had a lot of experience working with that medicine. And then 3-4 years ago, the African shamanic plant medicine in Boga did sort of the same thing. It just kind of like pried its way into my life. And so now I'm in a position where I feel like I can actually relay some of the cool things that have happened, some of the fascinating things that have happened in a way that can help other people find peace and happiness as well,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the thing that I want to share today, and the takeaway from my book and from exactly what you just said, actually, too, is you have to accept, the broken, busted you, and that was my biggest challenge, is I just couldn't accept that this was going to be my life, and at first I thought it was courageous, and I thought it was manly to like fight against something and prove to everyone that this wasn't going to happen to me. But, ultimately it had already happened. And I was fighting a battle I'd already lost, and nobody likes to be a loser. Nobody likes to accept defeat. But through realizing that I was doing that, with a lot of help from elders and guides, it became apparent to me that I didn't like myself. I didn't like my life. I surely didn't love myself. And so I was ensnared in this anger loop because I could not get over myself, and it took radical acceptance of what is, and a surrender to the things that were happening. And because I'd already lost, these things were done, the abuse, the addictions, the frustrations, all of it had already happened, and I was self-medicating, and I was, doing the typical thing that people do, like you're down and out, so why not make it worse? So, I'm mad at myself. I'm going to beat myself up some more and poison my body. So, a lot of the same things that you're talking about. And, but yeah, I just want to interject that, you're never going to get to bigger, better me until you can accept broken me, and that's the big first step,
I read somewhere recently, just like a summary of how to attain good health. The three keys to attaining good health. One was to stop putting things into your body and mind that are harmful to your body and mind. Number one. Number two was start putting things that are nurturing your body and mind into your body and mind. Number three was detox the stuff that's already in there that needs to go.
Right.
Pretty simple way of looking at, a holistic way of looking at health. And when I think back on my overall journey, that's been those three things right there. That summarizes it all, man. What would you say? Yeah. What would you say, Jeff? What would you say has been the most transformative? Maybe like the most transformative period, the most transformative practice, or the most transformative thing that you've gone through from dealing with your anger and your frustration and all that, and then finding peace.
Well, the most transformative time in my life was the bare bottom scraping, trying to figure out if I even wanted to live anymore, and that's when I fell and I shattered my pelvis in Costa Rica, and that was 8 years ago. And yet again, a bunch of surgeons and doctors told me I was never going to walk again. That I had now had osteoporosis and this muscle wasting, and that I was fat and overweight and all this good stuff because I was torturing myself and angry. Right. And at that time, that's when, the biggest influence in my life, which has been Erin, my wife, came to me and said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to take the kids and leave, and I'm going to leave you here. And because you're not you, and you're not a good example to them, and you're not helping yourself. You don't seem to want to help yourself, and you're not helping anyone right now. And I'm not going to sit here and let our sons watch this happen, because you're busted, you're broken, right? You're in three different ways, So, I mean, I agree with all the things you said, but my kind of take on it from a personal perspective is it's a 3-phase transformation that has to happen, and it's mind, body, and soul. And in the soul, I would include your spiritual practice, and I had none of the above. My mind was ensnared in anger, my body was failing me, and I was pissed off, and it was broken, and I had no spiritual practice, and I could give a crap about anything anybody said about anything. Didn't matter what it was, God, Jesus, shamanism, any of it. It all seemed whack and stupid because it wasn't going to change my life, and I was wrong, and it was when she encouraged me to really start addressing my issues that things totally changed. I mean, I lost 70 pounds laying in a bed in 10 and a half months. So you can't tell me that you have to exercise and, to lose weight, or that people can't say they don't want to lose weight. It's a choice. And losing weight is more about releasing anger and the things that you're holding on to, abuse, anger, frustration, whatever it is,
Right.
You start holding on to things. And the funny thing about that is you can't pick up or hold on to the nuggets of good and advice that people are giving you if you're clenching on to the past and you're so snuggled up with all your negative ways of thinking and acting in the world. So you got to put that crap down so that you can start to pick up and embrace some of the stuff that can absolutely help you on your path.
Yeah, when you first started off, it reminded me of some things that I've written about a number of times at the blog, man, like describing it as like the dark night of the soul. People have also described it as rock bottom. I definitely went through a place in my journey where I was that's it, man. I was at the very, very tail end. Same question as you. Do I even want to live through this? And something happened to me over the course of a week that just changed everything for me. And it was, when I tell the story to people, they're like, "Whoa, man, that's messed up." But looking back for myself, man, I'm really grateful that it happened and unfolded the way it did. In a nutshell, I was basically like full anxiety, full throttle depression, like at my wit's end. What do I do? My wife is frustrated. It's affecting my work. My wife is like, dude, you gotta fix yourself. I can't stand to be around you anymore. And so, in a moment of panic, I went to my doctor, my general practitioner, and I said, "Hey, look, man, this is what's happening. I've done this and this and this to myself, and I don't know what to do now." And he sees me, takes my blood pressure, it's super high, and he's like, "Yo, you're 26, 27 years old, and you're in bad shape. I've got to help you out here. I need you to take this, and I need you to take this, and I'm going to hook you up with an appointment with this really highfalutin psychiatrist, one of the top psychiatrists in our town. And let me get you an appointment with him later this week. But right now, I need you to take Xanax, which, at the time I was into partying and stuff. Xanax was like a party drug. It wasn't something that it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't like something that really helped you. It just helped to bury it all. But right. And also he gave me some really stiff. It was like Geodon or some kind of anti-schizophrenic medication, man. I had no business being on this stuff. But I was in a panic. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't have, spiritual advisors or a spiritual practice set up in my life. I had no support structure for navigating, waters this unsettled. And so I took these medications. I went straight to the pharmacy, had great insurance. Those guys gave me great deals on these pills, man, no big deal. And took the Xanax, relaxed into some Xanax, took the antidepressants, and within a few hours I was having a reaction to the antidepressants. It was pretty severe, I thought. I was like shaky, couldn't see straight. My body was doing weird things, just felt totally disassociative and spaced out. So I left work early and called my doctor and was like, "Yo, doc, I can't do this, man. This is bad. This isn't working for me."
Drugs are bad, Dylan. Drugs are bad.
Yeah, well, these drugs are bad. And he says, "Hey, man, relax. You'll get used to the side effects." And I'm thinking, like, man, this is the side effects. You want me to get used to living like this, man? Doesn't sound too appealing. So a couple days later, I end up in this psychiatrist's office, and I was new to the whole psychiatry game at that time, and waiting in the office for my appointment, and the pharmaceutical reps are coming and going with their little like tote bags or carry-ons full of free pills.
Yeah.
And, like I have to wait, 30, 45 minutes past my appointment time while these, like good looking, well-dressed sales reps come and go with, these. Yeah.
That's called crazy train.
The crazy train of pills, and I think a lot of people have experienced this. Whenever I tell this story to people, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, man, that sounds Sounds pretty common, you know. I go, so I
familiar.
Sounds familiar. So I go in this guy's office, right? And he's like I said, he's a bigwig. You know, he's like on the top board of the whatever in our local community, and you know, real sort of overbearing older dude. And I immediately, you know, because your subconscious mind is good at doing a lot of things without you thinking about it. And one of the things that your subconscious mind is really adept at is like making judgments on people within like a fraction of a second. I mean, you've experienced that too, man. As soon as you meet somebody, you don't even have to hear a word out of their mouth. When somebody looks at you, you know if that's a person you're going to be able to trust or you have any business dealing with, you know. Your mind just works that way. And so as soon as I came in contact with this guy, I was like, this is not my type of bro, you know?
Right.
And, but that's okay. I'm here for this appointment. I'm working through my problems. This is the solution that's been laid out before me, Jeff, you know,
right.
It's how it goes. You know, you're in trouble, go to your doctor, get some pills. And, so I have an hour long consultation with this guy, and he starts asking me, he's like, well, Sonny, so what's going on? Tell me all about it, young man, you know? And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not too comfortable yet talking to you. I kind of want to get to know you first. Oh, come on. We only got an hour. Let's get into this. What's going on? What's the matter? What's happened to you? What's your biggest, darkest secrets, you know? And I'm like, well, gee, man, can we just take this slow, you know? Maybe, you know, glass of wine first.
Can you give me a kiss before you bend me over?
You know, like, so, you know, I'm trying to ease into it, and I feel like, you know, your intuition's acting up. You feel like something inside of you, and it's like, you know, intuition is a great driving force, but if you don't know how to pay attention to it and how to react to it and how to act upon it, you know, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. But here it was, like, inside of me going, Dylan, you know, like,
right,
this does not add up. So we go back and forth for 30, 45 minutes, and he's finally, you can tell he's a little bit frustrated because I won't tell him my deepest, darkest secrets just yet.
Right.
And he's finally like, all right, well, you know, Sonny, let's cut to the chase here. We got to get to the bottom of this. You got 15 minutes left or whatever, you know, and I'm here to help. And so this whole thing.
I'm here to help, but we got 15 minutes, bro.
Let's
Come
get
on.
this done. You know, I got another sales rep coming in at 3:00. Come on.
I gotta push some more of these drugs on some other people behind you. Come on.
That's how it works, man. That's how it works. You know, I just wrote an article for our website about antidepressant use is like skyrocketing still. You know, there's a business model in place to push this stuff out into the public. I came in contact with this at an early enough age, and how it unfolded is so ridiculous that it drove me instantly away, which really saved my life. So this guy, he says to me, okay, well, let's cut to the chase. And I say, okay. Dr. So-and-so, can I ask you a couple questions? Oh, sure. You can ask me anything. So I look him right now and I say, how much money do you make? He answers right back, lightning bolt. I make $450,000 a year. I've got houses in Durango, Colorado, Westlake Hills, and Chiapas, Mexico. I got a Cessna, whatever airplane, and 2 Mercedes Benz. I'm like, damn. I was like, wow, you're doing pretty well. I was like, yes, I am. I'm doing really well. I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at his wall in his office. It's covered with like Vietnam era war memorabilia, right? Photos and stuff, and little like plaques and you know, like little models of airplanes and all this kind of stuff. So I say to him, I'm like, well, sir, you know, like I see all this stuff on your wall. Were you in Vietnam? He's like, yes, I was. I was like, well, what did you do in Vietnam? And he says, I was a fighter bomber pilot. And I said, okay. How many people have you killed? And he looks me straight in the eye without hesitation. He goes, thousands. You know, kind of like Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now, man. It really,
right.
It penetrated me all the way to my core. I was like, holy shit, man, I'm in the presence of a crazy psychopathic murderer. Wow. So this is butting up against the end of our consultation, and it's time to get down to business. And so he says, well, based on what I hear today, and we'll get further into this as time goes by, because, you know, he's counting on me to sign up, I guess, to come in every week. You know, I got good insurance and co-pays and all this garbage, so it's a pretty profitable deal for Mr. $450,000 a year with Mercedes-Benz and airplanes and extra homes and all that. So he says it's time to bubble this down and help you. So he pulls out his prescription pad and he opens his desk drawer and he's like, all right, here's what I want you to do. He's like, right now you're taking Xanax. I want you to take, half the dosage tomorrow and a quarter of the dosage the next day. But you're going to need help sleeping, so here's some Valium to replace that. You only take these after 9 o'clock. Okay. And he's like, now you need this Wellbutrin to help you there with the smoking or whatever it was. And you need this, and he's like, the Geodon that your other doctor's going on, no, that's no good. I need you to wean yourself off that for the next week and take this one into place. Plus, you're also going to need this one to balance out this and that. And so as he's talking, he's reaching in his desk drawers and he's pulling out sample packs of pills. It's just like the crack dealer on the street, that hangs out by the basketball court next to the school. And when all the kiddies walk home, he gives them free samples. This one's free, kid. And so he fills up literally a shopping bag full of pills. I'm supposed to take 7 different prescriptions per day. And I'm like, my jaw's dropping in his office. I'm like, wow, this psychopath.
And you're how old at the time again?
I think 26 at the time. Yeah.
26 years old. So yeah, six or 7 pills a day. That's good. That's good.
It's been 15 years. Yeah. And I ask him, I'm like, well, man, like this is all kind of this is kind of heavy. Yeah. How long am I supposed to take all this? He's like, well, you're gonna wean off this one in 1 month or whatever. This one, that one. And you shouldn't need. We're gonna have to up your dosage on this one here, and you're ultimately gonna get to triple the dosage on this one there. But this will be ongoing. And I'm like, what do you mean by ongoing? And he's like, I mean, like going on, like forever. Right?
This is your life.
Yeah, and
I gotta pay for our house in Durango, man.
I'm getting a new porch, put in. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, holy shit, man, I've got to take these forever. And I'm like 26. And it's funny because I had asked my doctor a few days earlier. I was like, wow, you're giving me these medications and stuff, and I really want help. But is there anything else that could help me? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, diet, exercise, anything? He's like, I mean, you could walk if you want. That won't hurt.
That's crazy talk, son.
It's crazy talk. So anyway, Dr. So-and-so, the psychopathic fighter bomber murderer who's killed thousands of people and has been paid handsomely. He's since me walking out of his office, like I'm totally dazed and confused now, with a bag of pills, man. And Jeff, and you're talking like jingle, jingle.
Yeah.
I sound like a frickin', it's like some kind of like bizarro Santa Claus coming out of the, with the treat bag and man, but you talk about a moment of awakening,
right.
There's been a lot of those, but you talk about like boom, the light bulb goes on, and walk out of the office, sign out and pay the $25 or whatever it cost me to get these fine services, and walk out the sunny day, look out at the sun. There's my car. I'm at the door. And I'm like, that was fucked up. Oh, look, there's a trash can. Why don't I just dump this bag in this trash can? Boop. Dump the bag in the trash can. Never looked back, man. I mean, that was it. And like I've told you before, we've talked about this. To me, that was like what happened there was like my safety net, my crutches. Just my crutches broke. My safety net just ripped. Right? There was nothing else. There was no other. There was nothing there to save me anymore but me. I had no other, nobody else to lean on, to fall back on, or whatever. It was me. I had no choice but to start taking the pills or take control,
Right.
And so I got in the car and drove home and was really quite shocked. I was quite like, what am I supposed to do now? And as it plays out, as it always plays out in life, Jeff, as it always plays out in life, Jeff, like this because you've learned this, whenever you're going through a change, whenever there's a change that you really need, whenever there's something important that you need to happen in your life, whenever it's your truest path opening up before you, things that you never imagined are going to happen. Carl Jung called these synchronicities. A lot of people just say like doors open for you that you never thought possible. There's other ways of looking at it as well, as like your perception changes and you start to take in information that maybe has always been in front of you, but you had never been open to it before because you were so focused on one specific thing. So Shattered totally just opened up my focus to, oh boy, what am I going to do now? And what happened within like a matter of a week or something was I found Kung Fu. There was a guy at my office who used to walk and, to and from my office all the time with kung fu weapons, giant spears, swords, all these crazy weapons. And I was always wondering what the hell he's doing. So I asked him, and he invited me to a kung fu class. Within 3 weeks, no more depression, no more anxiety,
Right. Which is, I think, another reason why, there's such a proliferation of all these psychotropic drugs in our society today, because people are, they're too stagnant in their life. They're not exercising, getting outside, getting out from behind the screen or the laptop, and going out there and being physical and getting something going. So I find that I know that I went through a similar type of situation where I was one day guided, kind of forcefully ushered into the mental ward of the VA, and the same kind of thing happened to me. I'll abbreviate the story a bit, but it is in the book. But I basically was put in front of a few different therapists for 5 minutes, and they all told me I was angry and that they couldn't deal with me, and that I needed to be on some mood altering drugs like lithium and Prozac. So ultimately I ended up in front of the head of the the mental health clinic, and she basically just told me that I was a horrible person, and that I was angry, and that smoking marijuana and doing all the stuff I was doing was what was causing all of my problems, but that taking Prozac and lithium were going to cure those problems. So and ultimately I said to her, I don't see how you can make these conclusions in a 5-minute interview when you already have a preconceived notion of what I should and should not be doing and who I am. And you haven't even asked me any questions about my past or the way I've been treated in the VA or by the military. And, where were you guys, 7 years ago when you dumped me out of the military with $200 a month in disability? You didn't care then, So ultimately, they, diagnosed me in 5 minutes with severe adjustment disorder. and sent me home packing with a bunch of pills. And ultimately, same thing. I never took, the only difference was I never took any of them because I was already against it to begin with. And when I returned and they asked, they sent me to see the new guy, the new kid on the block who had just started there, because they were like, yeah, let's give all the troublesome, shitty people to this kid. And it turned out to be the best thing, because he was only a couple years older than me, and he was Buddhist, and he was really open-minded, and he asked me in our initial consultation if I was taking the meds, and I told him no, and that I wasn't going to. And he was like, well, why? And I told him that I'm not always angry. I usually only get angry when people are fucking with me, like you guys tend to do here all the time. And, sometimes I have a hard time with this, but wouldn't you? Let's say you were a big 6'3", hard-hitting dude that could do anything athletically, and then now you're having to ride around in a wheelchair and walk with a cane, and anybody can bump into you, knock you over, and break bones, and it's not a cool perspective of change in a few short years period. And I just told him that if we could trade places for a day, I'll take your body and I'll go do all these amazing, awesome things, go for a hike, go mountain biking, maybe kayak the river there in downtown Austin, and then you can have my body and deal with all the frustrations and things not communicating and working correctly, and then the next day we can change places back, and then let's have a real deep conversation about severe adjustment disorder, and let's get real about what's really going on. And I just told him, I'm not going to gloss over my feelings with drugs. I'm going to cry today so I can smile tomorrow. And I think I need to explore these feelings and, see where I can go with it. That's the only way I'm ever going to recover. And I'll never forget, he looked me in the eye and said, you may be the most sane person I've ever talked to in the VA system. So, but I mean, it didn't let me out of the situation. I was forced to go to what they called psychological rehabilitation for the next 2 years. So,
yeah, that sounds intimidating. Psychological rehabilitation,
right?
But you could just as easily put a positive spin. I mean, really, that's kind of what we're doing with this podcast. It is psychological rehabilitation.
Right. It's redesigning reality.
It's redesigning reality.
And, I just wanted to, to follow up on that. Out of some of the most challenging things and challenging times in my life has come the largest and biggest growth and payoff, and
totally.
I'm not going to deny that I learned so much. I learned so much in that 2 years because somebody cared and they took an interest in me, and I was honest with them and they were honest with me. And I finally lowered my defenses and backed down on my anger enough to accept, the things that I'm here, I'm not getting out of this, and maybe I can learn something here. And I absolutely did. And that was you asked me earlier, what was the big change? And the big change was, the breaking my pelvis and all that, but the beginnings of it, the little knock on the door, the little tap on the shoulder of, hey,
wake up, Jeff, wake up.
Hey, angry ass, dumbass, like this maybe could help you, and you're here anyway, so don't shut down, just do it.
Yeah, so what are you doing now? I mean, that's kind of like the beginning, and here we are now. A whole lot of really amazing, incredible stuff has happened, but we got lots of time to get to that in the future. But what are you doing now? What's your spiritual practice like now? What's your where are you at? What are you working towards?
I think we're all on a path of I like the term self-actualization, where you can realize who and what you are in the moment. And some of the things that I touch on this stuff in the book, but so as far as spiritual practice goes, I'm very into meditation, and I still do shamanic journeying with the drums. No psychedelic medicines or anything like that right now. And my biggest practice is forgiveness. And I have developed this thing I call forgiveness in the moment, where things are going to happen. People judge me all the time.
Right.
People judge everybody all the time, and that's their damage. It's not yours. And you have to realize that looking like I do, with the big goatee and the earrings and tattoos, and I'm a big dude and I look very strong and healthy. I know that when you look at me on the screen, you're going to think there's nothing wrong with that dude. So imagine what I used to look like. Anyway, but seriously though, I developed this practice I call forgiveness in the moment, and it's where you have to immediately accept the ugly look and because it happened. I mean, people say dumb shit to me, like walk up to my car and say, you're not disabled, you can't park here. And I have a handicap tag, and then my wife or son gets my wheelchair out and they walk away like a whipped puppy, and it's like, yeah, dude, mind your own fucking business. And that used to be my attitude. And now I use it as a learning tool for them and for me. It's an opportunity for me to grow my forgiveness and to practice what I preach of forgiveness in the moment. And it's an opportunity for them too to learn not to judge, Yeah, well,
they say like, whenever you negatively like judge or something, someone else, you're projecting onto them what's really going on inside your own heart. And I think people tend to think about that as like from their own perspective. But it works. Right. It's a two-way street, man. When somebody comes up to you in the world and they throw that kind of stuff on you, you get a chance to see who they really are.
Absolutely. But you also, you get to see who you are, and that's the coolest thing. And that's been the biggest takeaway from a life of challenging situations is, man, I'm really getting to know myself on levels that most people don't even touch, and I think that's why people seek me out for consultation or information, counseling, whatever you want to call it. It's been very effective because, like I've said, right. I spit, the reality of my life to them. I don't talk about something I studied in school when I was, reading some theory on how to, accept who and what and where you are. Because, it's one thing for somebody to, I've broken bones. I've broken many bones before and after this situation, but I'd never been diagnosed with the incurable disease. And that's a whole nother level of, catching a cold or a flu or breaking your ankle. You're going to get over that and you're going to get better. And when someone tells you you're never going to get better and it's only going to get worse, man, that does some things to your mind, and it takes a long time to start, picking up the pieces of your life and putting yourself back together again. And I didn't always handle things well, and I didn't always handle it the way I do now, but I've learned compassion, and the way I learned it is by growing compassion for myself and realizing that I am fallible and I am human and I am imperfect, and I'm not supposed to know what to do right now. I've never done this shit before, and once I could accept that, that's when, like you said, that's when all these people just started showing up in my life and kind of guiding me and helping me to change my perspective. And, I love, Dr. Wayne Dyer, that, he passed away a few years ago, but he was an awesome, amazing person and writer. And he said, when you begin to look at things different, things begin to look differently. And, that's saying a whole lot without saying much right there, but it's totally true. When you change your perspective on the things that you're looking at, they don't look as awful or incurable or frustrating as they did with your old vision,
Yeah, and I think that's really what we're trying to relay here. I think we'll get better and we'll get this dialed in as we go forward. And we're taking this podcast live from our home offices. Lots happening here in my house, with the kids running around. I got a Chihuahua, you got a Chihuahua, and we're definitely both coming from a place of peace, of inner peace. And as I carry this message through with my blog and just with the day-to-day people that I meet and interact with and hang out with, I find that people are really, really curious about how you are able to just be so laid back. I mean, maybe part of that's being in Costa Rica, but that experience that you and I shared in Costa Rica really helped us to find a sense of calm, a sense of relaxed being. And for me, I summarize it as a sense of gentleness, both with myself, but especially with the way I look and view and interact with other people. Man, and that's so valuable when you think about all the crazy stuff that's happening in this world. This whole this whole program of sort of divide and conquer, and everybody taking sides and hardening themselves to one idea or the other, and becoming more and more inflexible as they go. And I really think now is a really important time to listen to and assimilate the message of calm, of open-mindedness, of letting go, of being able to let go of who you are, who you were, what you thought needs to happen, what you feel like you need to take control of. Because in reality, Jeff, man, I've learned we don't really have control over a whole lot, and I know you'll back me up on this, but the one thing the only thing I can think of that I really have control over is the way that I react to whatever's happening.
Right.
Whatever Absolutely. It is. Whether it's my Chihuahua barking here a minute ago or whatever, whether it's some guy road raging out on me or whether it's whatever's happening on the news, right?
Right.
There's only one variable that I have my hand on the controls of. So, with that, man, you got anything else you want to wrap up and say?
Well, I mean, this is just, this is real. This is life, and
yes.
You're going to hear a Chihuahua barking or maybe a German Shepherd, and here we go again with acceptance, right? And I'm with you. I think
Flow.
people become too rigid and too set in their ways. And I would encourage anyone who's listening to this to put yourself out of your comfort zone. That's where your growth is going to happen, and be flexible. This thing that's happening to you, it's called life, and it's pretty awesome if you let it in. So many people are trying to build walls and bar their windows and keep life on the outside, and it's when you let life in that your life becomes more fruitful. It becomes more experiential. And then, you could have a podcast too and talk about all these cool things.
Yeah. And it becomes more free too. I think ultimately what I was seeking when I was younger is freedom. And that's the way I've come to understand freedom has evolved quite a bit in the years. But yeah, I mean, first, freedom from pills, freedom from negative thought patterns, freedom from all that stuff. And I think that's what we're seeking with this podcast is freedom. It's going to be part, we're going to be, it's part confessional. It's part conversation. It's part, really, I'm starting to think of it as sort of a mastermind of personal transformation. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
And so with that, thanks for tuning in, and we'll keep you posted on episodes to come in the future. Jeff?
For sure. See you next time, bro.
All right.
You've been listening to Redesigning Reality with Jeff Anthony and Dylan Charles.